Moments ago, we checked in with Trey Yingst as explosions rang out and Iranian strikes were being intercepted in Tel Aviv. Let's go back out to him for a status check. Hey, Trey, what's going on there now?
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. Just a few minutes ago, we were live here with you, and we saw these missiles in the distance being intercepted. You could hear the explosions, an indication that Iran has launched yet another barrage at Israel. The first barrage in 6 hours. And then just shortly after that, we could see some black smoke rising from the horizon, an indication there was either a direct impact or a shrapnel or debris fall. We're continuing to check with first responders to see if we can get any other information about that latest Iranian barrage. But it comes as we're getting some new images out of Tehran, where overnight the Israelis launched a series of airstrikes targeting 4 separate oil facilities. You can see here smoke and flames billowing from the skyline in Tehran as people pull over and look at the devastation and destruction to these oil storage locations on the outskirts of Tehran. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says this type of fire will continue. They are going to go after the Iranian regime very hard in the days ahead, the Prime Minister says, adding this earlier today.
With the help of our daring pilots and those of the United States, we have achieved almost complete control over the skies of Tehran. With each passing day, we are stripping away more and more capabilities of the regime in Iran. We are doing the same in Lebanon, with crushing attacks on Hezbollah terrorists who act on behalf of Iran.
The Iranians are still launching attacks against Israel and U.S. allies in the Gulf. But as this is taking place, there is a real understanding that this defensive posture will have to continue in the days ahead, despite the fact that the U.S. and Israel have been quite successful in their ability to target the ballistic missile launching positions. You can see here some of those missiles soaring through the skies with interceptors trying to take them down over Tel Aviv on Saturday. Now, today, Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian is speaking out again about the conflict, saying this from his perspective.
Our Iran and our country will not bow easily in the face of bullying, in the face of oppression, in the face of aggression, and have not bowed. And it is not possible that our heroic nation will retreat easily in the face of threats that they make.
Yesterday, Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian said that there were some efforts for mediation that were reached by other countries. President Trump immediately responded to that post on X and said there will be no deal. There will be complete surrender. That is what the president is standing by right now, and that is the position of the United States government. They are not willing to make a deal with the Iranian regime that is continuing to attack U.S. forces and allies across the region, and this war is expected to continue in the days ahead.
Trey, you've been reporting on the strikes on the oil facilities there. Israel struck 4 of those, and we've got a map we can show our viewers. They're all in Tehran. 2 of them are the oil storage. Israel saying, Prime Minister Netanyahu saying that they struck those because Iran's military was using them, and so this is all a part of the effort to ultimately bring the Islamic regime down. But on the map on our viewers on the right, you see that Iran's entire oil infrastructure that includes oil fields, pipelines, terminals, and refineries. And I'm struck, Trey, on the first day of the invasion of Iraq in 2003, I was with a Marine unit that put troops on the ground because they feared Saddam in an existential threat. If the walls were closing in, he would torch the oil fields in an act of desperation. Have we heard anything about Israel or the U.S.'s concern that this Islamic regime in Iran could at some point consider torching their oil fields to cause global chaos?
I don't have any information on that, but we know that the Iranian regime has built its country and its military program around oil production and their ability to sell oil to countries like China and Russia. And despite the fact they've been heavily sanctioned by the United States government, they still find ways using shadow fleets and other vessels to get around those sanctions and try to prop up the IRGC and the military that is currently launching these attacks against U.S. forces and allies across the region. And so this is going to continue to be an important part of the conversation, along with energy infrastructure in the Gulf. We know that the country of Qatar shut down its liquefied natural gas production for the first time in 30 years. And so this issue of energy will continue to be part of the conversation, but there are efforts underway by the Trump administration to try and ensure that this will not, as best as possible, directly affect consumers. Certainly there will be a change in prices, but it's difficult to tell, first of all, how long this is going to last and what the impact will be on the energy markets around the world.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and it's interesting, ahead of a midterm, that could have a huge impact, correct?
Certainly, but I also think an important thing to consider here is the idea of security and the attacks that were being planned by the Iranian regime against U.S. forces and allies across the region. And that's part of what the president has told the American people and the world about why this operation needed to take place. It's really a three-pronged issue, not to mention the issue of cracking down on protesters earlier this year. But you had Iran, who was pursuing a nuclear weapon. They arrived at the negotiating table saying that they had 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, enough to make 11 nuclear bombs. That was their opening remarks to U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. So not only the pursuit of a nuclear weapon, but their support of regional proxies like Hezbollah in southern Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen, but then also their ballistic missile program that is continuing to expand and threaten not just U.S. forces and allies, but even the Europeans. And so the president understood this threat, and he also understood that with a regime so unpredictable as the Iranians, that threat could be used at any moment. And what the president is trying to do with this Operation Epic Fury right now is basically take the feet out from under the Iranians and not only destroy these programs and the military infrastructure around them, but take out anything that the Iranians could use to threaten energy in the future in the Strait of Hormuz, for example, or in the Persian Gulf. Remember, the Iranians moved much of their top Navy assets to the Gulf of Oman because they thought they would be safe there. All of the Navy assets that the Iranians placed in the Gulf of Oman, according to U.S. Central Command, are currently at the bottom of the sea. And so, again, this just gives you a sense of how the president is trying to dismantle this threat to the world. And I think that people are looking at this, and they do understand, especially as this war is developing and the Iranians are launching attacks against countries that have not ever even been involved in conflict in this region. They understand the threat very well.
Yeah. All right.
Trey Yingst, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Trey.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.